Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie, and welcome to this two-part series focused on the music of Kirk Brandon. Episode 1, the one you're watching right now, is going to focus on his bands The Pack and Theater of Hate. Remember to stay tuned for episode 2, where I focus on his band Spirit of Destiny. Now, some of you who are not already fans may not be familiar with the name Kirk Brandon. He's actually been around since the late 70s. He is essentially, apart from being a singer, songwriter, guitar player, and fronting numerous bands, including Theater of Hate, The Pack, Spear of Destiny, Dead Men Walking. He also has solo albums out. He is essentially a post-punk poet, a post-punk storyteller. He's very passionate, very intense. He's very unique, his writing style, which really follows no formula. Some of his hooks are instantaneous, while others reveal themselves. They unravel over time throughout the song. Really wonderful and unique, eclectic, passionate musician, and still at the very top of his game. In fact, his most recent recordings are some of his best. Now, I usually like to start these videos off by telling you how I got into an artist, and essentially, in regards to Kirk Brandon and Theater of Hate, I have The Clash to thank for that. And while they don't sound anything like The Clash, because Theater of Hate, Spear of Destiny, it's post-punk. It's not hard-edged, straight buzzsaw guitar punk. Some of it could be very angular. Some of it could be very moody. And if you know me and you know that I'm a pop kid and I really love, the really sunshiny pop melodies, I must tell you that Spear of Destiny and Theater of Hate are not sunshiny pop. They have great, wonderful melodies, but as I said a little bit earlier, they reveal themselves over time. But anyway, back to how I got into the band. They first came onto my radar when I read somewhere in either Melody Maker, Enemy, or Sounds that their first album was being produced by Mick Jones. No, not that Mick Jones. That's the Mick Jones from Foreigner. I'm talking about the Mick Jones from The Clash. And of course, right there, that instantly made me want to check him out because I was a huge Clash fan, obviously still am. But from what I remember, all you can get was imports. And so I finally got a hold of the album Westworld. And while it sounded nothing like The Clash and the production wasn't this great boisterous thing, man, you could really tell that this was a very special band. But before I tell you about that album, let's go back to the beginning. Kirk was originally in a punk band called The Pack, and they formed in 1978. In 1979 and 80, they released a couple singles and an EP, and they were combined on a CD called Dead Ronin. While they had that buzzsaw guitar punk sound, I think they were really post-punk at this point because Kirk already had a musical vision. His voice is unique. It can be sing-songy. He could, wail these notes and just hold them out, and a very, very unique artist. And while I'd never heard of The Pack when they were releasing these singles, they were UK only, I got turned on to them after I discovered Theater of Hate. Now, The Pack broke up, I believe, in 1980, and he formed Theater of Hate with bassist Stan Stammers. And the first album they actually released was a live album called He Who Dares Wins. And I've never owned that. I've never been a fan of live albums. I like to experience a band live. Theater of Hate had this reputation of being a great live band, but there was such a buzz on them that they put out that album while they worked on their first studio album. Now, in 1982, they released their first album, and it was called Westworld. As I said, it's Kirk Brandon, Stan Stammers. There's also Luke Rendell on drums and a gentleman by the name of John Leonard on saxophone. And that's what really made this band stand out from all the other bands. Is it was a post-punk band, very unique sound. It had dark hues, like I said before, very passionate. But the sax wasn't this typical, Kenny G type saxophone playing. Sometimes he was playing conventional riffs. Sometimes he was going off and playing some avant-garde pieces, and it just really works within the context of this band. Now, there have been several versions of Westworld released on CD. This is one of them that has bonus tracks. The one, if you just want to get that album, I would really recommend the Cherry Red box set that features the full album and also BBC sessions and rarities and live recordings. It's a 3 CD set. Really wonderful set there. And like I said earlier, their sound is completely unique. In fact, their most popular song is Do You Believe in the Westworld, which has this post-punk vibe to it, but the guitar riff that goes through the song is really kind of like a Western, spaghetti Western type guitar twang to it. And it's really wonderful, but it's also very powerful. But in order to go through the rest of the catalog, I'm going to show you another box set that Cherry Red put out, and it is called Studio Works 1980 to 2020. What this does is it combines the Westworld album with other studio things, and I'm going to go through those real fast with you. First CD in this box is singles, and it's a really good representation of the band. And of course, there is the Westworld album that I already showed you. Now, after that album, the band were recording their second album, but by the time the band was recording the second album, the lineup had changed. You still had Kirk Brandon, you still had Stan Stammers and John Leonard on saxophone, but they were joined by guitarists Billy Duffy and Nigel Preston on drums, both of whom would go on to form The Cult. But the album that they were working on didn't come out till later. But this was supposed to be the second Theater of Hate album. It is called Area of the Devil. And it's really, really just a logical extension of what they were doing. Still sounded very much Theater of Hate, but little, I guess you want to say, bulkier and more powerful. And it's really a great collection. Now, before that was actually officially released on CD, there was a CD called 10 Years After that came out. And this featured monitor mixes of those recordings by Theater of Hate. But that's out of print, and I recommend you to get Area of the Devil because that's really closer to what the band intended. Also in this box set, you're going to get Theater of Hate at the BBC, and this has some John Peel sessions as well as a Kid Jensen session. And that's a great representation. I don't mind live recordings when there's not an audience. Yeah, but that's just me. I mean, if you watched any of my videos, you know that I'm not a fan of too many live albums. But let's get back to Theater of Hate. After they had broken up, both Kirk and Stan Stammers went off to form Spear of Destiny. And by the late 80s, Stan Stammers had left the band. And by the mid-90s, Kirk Brandon had sort of set aside Spear of Destiny for a little while. But he approached Stan Stammers again about starting a new band. And I believe that they were going to be called Elephant Days. But by the time the album came out, they were called Kirk Brandon's 1051. And the album was called Stone in the Rain. And this album features Kirk and Stan, Derek Forbes, formerly of Simple Minds, also John McNutt on guitar and Art Smith on drums. This is a logical extension of what Kirk and Stan had been doing, but it was more modern sounding. Oddly enough, this album was kind of repackaged and issued in the U.S. under the group name Theater of Hate and under the album title Retribution. So if you have Theater of Hate's Retribution, that's what this album is. In this box set, it is properly listed under the original band's name. You can also buy that separately on CD as well. Now, Kirk went back to Spear of Destiny and was continuing to put out albums under Spear of Destiny, but in 2016, a brand new Theater of Hate album came out. It was Kirk, back again with Stan Stammers, saxophone player John Leonard, plus guitarist Adrian Portis and drummer Danny Ferrant. Now, Danny, I believe, worked on at least one Spear of Destiny album, but he's also the current drummer for Buzzcocks. But this is a great, powerful Theater of Hate album, a great return to form for the band. If you're a fan of the old material, this is just a great addition to their catalog. This is not in the box set that I'm talking about, but there is a CD called Yanjuichi. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Not sure. But it is a collection of remixes of Theater of Hate material, and it has material from the Kinshi album. And in 2020, Theater of Hate returned again with a brand new studio album. And this one is called Utsukushi Sa, A Thing of Beauty. And this lineup features Kirk, Stan, Chris Bell, who played drums with Spear of Destiny on their first album, Adrian Portis on guitar, and Clive Osborne on saxophone. And again, a wonderful collection of songs. And this is not in the box set either. So if you want a sort of semi-complete collection of studio recordings by Theater of Hate, you're going to want to get the Studio Works box set, as well as the Kinshi and the Utsukushi Sa, Thing of Beauty album. Just a really fascinating band. Now, there's also a lot of compilations out there, live albums out there, but I'm not focusing on them. I'm just focusing on the studio albums. Now, if you've never heard the band, I've put together a little medley featuring short sound bites from some of the songs, just to give you an idea of what to expect when you dive into the catalog of Theater of Hate. So give this a listen, and I'll see you on the other side.
Right.
Anyway, that's it. I hope this inspires you to check out Theater of Hate. That's really the only reason why I make these videos. Remember to stay tuned for part 2 of my 2-part Kirk Brandon series where I focus on his music. Part 2 is going to focus on his band Spear of Destiny. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.